one of the reasons why you may not be open to intimacy with your partner during pregnancy is that pregnancy requires you to prioritize your own body. It requires you to prioritize the baby through your body, and really draws forth any of the issues that might be in the field of the dynamic of your relationship. And so if you have challenges in your relationship, like you're feeling overworked or over householding or overdrawn with your children, and then your partner is coming to you as a sort of like needy, horny human who's like, but what about my needs? It can feel really off-putting to want to engage in intimacy, and a lot of women actually just pull back completely. It's pretty common for me to hear stories about women who stopped having sex during their pregnancy and then don't really get back into it until they are maybe 12 to 15 months postpartum or once they stop breastfeeding. And to me, this really points to, everybody gets to have their own experience. For some people, that really works. For me personally, I love my sex life. I'm really happy to be in juicy, yummy intimacy. And if that is something that nourishes and nurtures you, you're going to want to engage in it. If it's something that drains and depletes you, you're not going to want to engage in it. If intimacy is something where you are turning off your defaults, if you're turning off your own needs and saying, like, I'm going to put my needs aside and meet his needs, you're going to have a hard time actually wanting to engage in that while you're pregnant. Whereas if your intimacy is something that is mutually nourishing, or whether if you're maybe non-sexual intimacy, like so touch, kissing, caressing, that kind of thing, that you're receiving from your partner is really nourishing, it's much, much easier to say, like, yeah, I want to do that. Unfortunately, a lot of people, men, women, both, were raised on pornography in terms of our base sort of imprinting of what sexuality is. A lot of women had rape or incest or sexual abuse as some of their first sexual experiences. And so these experiences form how we relate to intimacy. And in pregnancy, if this is coming up, is absolutely super challenging, and is something that I encourage you to get support around, or to at least start doing the inner diving in work to resolve that for yourself. Because our intimacy, our sex lives, our pregnancies, and our intimacy are meant to be really deeply nourishing and supportive to us as women, to show us the deepest part of ourselves, the most awake and alive and inspired and creative life force parts of ourselves. And if that's not what we're experiencing, then there is work that can be done to help open and crack that open and have that experience. You may or may not be willing to do that work during your pregnancy. You may or may not be willing to do that work at all. But if the idea of having a juicy, fulfilling sex life during pregnancy, after pregnancy, whatever that might be, appeals to you, then I absolutely encourage you to continue listening. So again, with pornography forming a lot of pornography or abuse or abusive pornography, however you want to phrase it, forming a lot of people's ideas around what sex and intimacy are. And like, trust me, I was there too. I've done a lot of work to get to where I'm at, and I like to talk about it because A, it's really a beautiful, juicy, passionate part of my life. B, it's like my life path. And C, I really believe that you can benefit from having the knowledge and insight of the mistakes that I've made and that I see a lot of people make when I work with them in private practice around their experiences of intimacy. So I don't know if this sounds familiar, but there is sort of an experience of this was my reality for a long time, of wanting to engage in intimacy, wanting to engage in connection with partner, maybe wanting to start with like cuddles or kissing, but finding that there was a hand between my legs being like, come on, come on, come on, you hard yet? You horny yet? Does it feel good? Does it feel good? And sort of this like very intense, like, if you're listening to the podcast, I make a really silly face right there. Um, but sort of like this intensity that if you look at how men are taught to self-pleasure, which is, hidden quickly, let's get this over with, let's like get myself hard and get myself off. Often they take that form of touching into their intimacy with women, and this is like, does not work. Generally it works once you've worked through all the hurdles and all of the stuff and you're both very willing and open. But if you're not and there's challenges, it absolutely does not work generally. Um, And then there's sort of this like push towards orgasm. I like to think about the female sexuality as water that comes to a boil, and the male sexuality as the fire that is doing that. So, to start a fire is like, we start the fire, it takes maybe like 5 minutes, and there the fire is there, it's hot, it's burning, it's ready, right? We put a pot of water on top of that fire. It takes 20-25 minutes for it to really get to a bubbling boil. And then if we take that pot off the fire, or if the fire goes out for some reason, the pot continues to stay hot and warm and juicy and wet for like quite some time, and bubbling and boiling and rippling with pleasure for quite some time after the fire has already gone out. I think this is a fabulous metaphor for human sexuality in terms of men and women as stereotypes, obviously gender fluidity and all sorts of things. Not my specialty. Generally, I'm talking about heterosexual people. There's other podcasts for other people. Um, and these things also still apply to the energetic dynamics of same-sex partners. Anyway, so, as men, recognizing this, your intimacy does not start the moment you're in the bed together. Your intimacy starts early in the day. How do you acknowledge her? How do you connect with her? How do you support her, especially during pregnancy? How do you respond to her needs? Do you listen to her when she's talking to you? Do you make changes when she is asking for change? Do you respect her desires and her wishes? Do you take proactive action towards the things that she's asking for? Do you show initiative? Are you helping with the housework? Are you helping with the kids? And this sounds like a really big list, but we're talking about building and stoking that boiling water, so that instead of, sort of starting the fire and being like, God, this water takes a long time to boil, we've got the water at a constant simmer all day, because all of those needs are being met. All of those are intimacy needs that I just named there. All of these are things that women need from our partners and our community and our family and our friends anyways. And if the woman is depleted in any of those areas, it's going to be much harder for her to want to open up and to be in that deep connection with you. So you, as male partner or partner who's nurturing a woman who's pregnant, you can look at all of those things. I also think about, like, are you taking time to pause and appreciate her beauty throughout the day? Are you taking time to kiss her neck, or kiss her arms, or touch her, or offer her these short embraces? My partner and I had a really big breakthrough when I was able to say, hey, actually, like, I need you to come up to me a couple of times a day and just wrap your arms around me. Because when we pass each other in the kitchen and we don't physically acknowledge each other, I feel like neglected. I feel ignored, I feel neglected, I feel threatened by that neglect, and it shuts me down. Basically, like, turns the heat down on that rolling boil and makes it more challenging and require more work later in the day to sort of open up to that intimacy. And we noticed very quickly, within a short period of time, that when he started to have these like short sort of spicy moments where we just like make out for a little bit, or he would just like grab me in a way that felt really sexual or really dominating throughout the day, that I was much, much more open to opening later in the evening. And this is kind of a lady thing. So what that looks like might be different, right? It might be a little pat on the bum, it might be like a finger down the spine, it might be like nibbles on the neck, or it might be more verbal, right? Depends on your love language. It might be helping around the house, or it might be all of these things, helping around the house and being like, I'm so glad, honey, I just took the garbage out, I can't wait to like kiss you later, right? So we're planting these seeds throughout the day that help open up that space of intimacy. um yeah, so, and a lot of the time, women know these things are going on. They know they want these things, but it can be really tricky to ask for them, because we just want them. We don't want to have to ask for them. Part of being in a surrendered, juicy, feminine space is not having to ask, but being in that sort of telepathic communion where you think it and it happens, or being in that space. I think a lot of women, on a physiological level, like, we're still really expecting the community and the village to be there, and when it's not, we feel empty and we don't know why. We feel abandoned or overwhelmed and we don't know what to do about it. And so, just by naming all of these things, can sort of go like, oh, if we make sure that all of these things are taken care of, and that might be challenging as a mother of 3 or 4 or 5, but who are the aunts and the uncles that you can call in to help fill that space? If your partner is working, who are the women that you can have around you that can help meet those needs so that you can show up juicy and beautiful to your partner later? And if there are big challenging topics that you haven't talked about, if there are major disconnects in your values, or if there are major challenges in how you're handling, stresses with your older children or your in-laws or whatever that might be, instead of pursuing sexual intimacy, take the time to have the conversations about these things, to get clear individually on what it is that you're really hoping for, and then come together and have those conversations. And if you need to engage a professional, a therapist, a counselor, a mediator, whatever that might be, to help resolve those things, like those big things absolutely will stand in the way of you having a juicy, happy sex life. So you need to do that work so that you can have what it is that you want in terms of the connection. It is, I think, I often talk about how men work from the waist up and women work from the crown down when it comes to connecting and intimacy. So men go like, is there a tiger in the room? Is there a mother-in-law in the room? Is there a child in the room? No? Okay, we're good to go, right? They're looking for their base level safety, the root chakra, like, am I good to go? Can I move forward into intimacy with this woman? Very, very simple. Whereas women are looking from the top down for like, do I know who I am in the world? Do I have a clear vision of what I want for my life? And is my partner on board and supporting that? Do I feel clear to be able to speak my truth and share my vision and my voice and like share those things with my partner? If not, right, we're just stop right here, and like there's no getting to the hips. It's not happening, right? So we need to encourage that voice and listen to our partners all the way through. Do I feel loved? Do I feel cherished? Do I love this person? Do I feel open and clear in my heart? And then moving down to I've got my hands down my belly, the sacral or the solar plexus chakra is like, do I feel empowered by this person to like take the action that I need to take to live the life I want to live? Do I feel like they support all of those things? Do I feel like I'm supporting myself in that? In being able to take action on the things that I believe in. And then moving down into the sacral is like, can I create with this person? I'm creating life with them, but like, can I create in other areas of our lives? Are we actively working together to create? And then finally moving down into the root and being like, oh, now I feel rooted and grounded and sexy and safe. And now I'm open and ready to open up. And again, it sounds like a lot of work, but if you can keep that clear and you can just generally support your woman to be empowered in the way that she wants to be empowered in the world, your sex life is going to be much, much more vibrant and open, which is probably what, as a man, if you're listening to this, you're wanting. And as a woman, also to be fully aligned and in balance and connected to all of those powers and all of that connection, like, is really juicy, and some really incredible things can happen in terms of manifestation, in terms of intimacy and connection with your partner when you are really tuned into that. And it's one thing to say like, pursue this for the sake of your intimacy, but also pursue this for the sake of yourself. Pursue that alignment for the sake of your baby and your birth, because anything you don't process in your pregnancy is going to show up in your birth. With my first son, I had this experience of feeling really cut off in my voice. I didn't feel like I could speak. I was dealing with a lot of like habitual silence, habitual like, no, we don't talk about problems kind of thing. And my son was literally born with the cord wrapped around his neck, and that was a traumatic experience for him and for me. And there was, again, more silence, and it was really like a challenging experience. And that caused trouble. It was something that was happening in my life during the pregnancy, and it showed up in the birth process. And so if you are wanting a beautiful, pain-free, pleasurable birth, you can do yourself a favor and do the work in your pregnancy rather than in the labor space or in the birthing time, because as we know, if you birthed baby before, in the birthing time the sensations are more intense, the intensity of the energy is more intense, and if you can be a clear, happy, aligned conduit for that birthing baby, then you're going to have a lot less trouble in your labor experience than if you have all this sort of like crunky junk that's like sitting between you and your partner, or sitting within yourself in a not good way. So opening up to relax and release that is really, really important and really powerful to do. So yeah, I think that's all we've got on that topic for today. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a beautiful day. If you had a good insight from this, I'd really appreciate you sharing the link on your favorite social media, along with the insight you gained from the talk, and I'd love to get to know you better through the membership or through one of our online classes or courses. Have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful day, and we'll talk to you soon.